Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to share with you a review of the new ColourPop Through My Eyes collection with I Love Sarah E. I'm going to be sharing a tutorial with the eyeshadow palette swatches and also swatch comparisons to the Perception palette and Salvaje palette that came out recently, in case you guys want to know if you should pick up the new palette, if you have those other ones already. I'll also share with you how I got this look today using the new collection. So if you guys want to know everything about the new Through My Eyes collection, then just keep on watching. ColourPop Through My Eyes palette retails for $23. This is in collaboration with I Love Sarah E, and this is kind of like the same exact layout as the Perception palette. You have a mirror, 16 shades, and then 9 matte shades and 7 shimmer shades. And then with this collection, she also released 3 lip colors. 2 ultra matte lips and 1 gloss. The ultra matte lips are $6.50 each, and then the gloss is $6, and you could get these all together for $16 total. I ended up getting this whole bundle together for $39, and then you could also get a PR package, but that's just like, I think $10 extra just for a box, so I don't want to get that, but everything together was $39. So getting into all of the shades in this palette, and I'll go ahead and insert some swatches since there's so many shades, but this is a really consistent palette with all the mattes and all the shimmers. They swatch and apply really beautifully. There's no inconsistencies, which is awesome for sure. And I was really interested in like all of the different color combinations in this palette because there's some pops of color that really catch my attention, like Emerald Dream, which is what I have on my lower lash line. It's a really beautifully pigmented shade. I'm wearing the shade Muse, which is also like a gorgeous copper shade. And then Flex is like a really nice grungy tone. Like you get a lot of nice variety between cool tones and warm tones, and also with all of the matte shades in this palette. So here's just a couple of the shimmer swatches so you guys can see like the color payoff, and that's really consistent throughout the whole palette. And what made me really interested in this palette is that a lot of times when there's a couple pops of colors in a palette, it's usually like all brown and then a green, a blue, and maybe like a purple. But that's not the case with this palette because with the transition shades, they're like unlikely shades. It's not like a light, medium, and dark brown or burgundy and things like that. You do have a couple brown tones, some oranges, but you have a lot of purpley tones, and you have some cool mauve tones and also a green in there as well. And the deeper mattes are awesome. Like the darker purple, it swatches and applies so beautifully, and moody as well. Like these are really pigmented matte colors. So I definitely didn't see any negatives with the color payoff or patchiness or anything like that. Everything's really blendable and really consistent in this palette with the mattes and the shimmers. I always find ColourPop shimmers to be pretty awesome, but I was actually really impressed with the mattes in here too, especially for those deeper and more bolder shades. I did want to show you guys comparisons to the Perception palette. I feel like I saw a lot of comments on Trendmood comparing both of these because it's like the same layout. They're both $23 palettes with 16 shades. If you look at them together, you do see it's like a similar kind of theme with warm tones and some pops of colors. But when I did swatch and compare them, there wasn't too many similarities. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys like the similarities between both. All right, so here are 7 similar shades between the Through My Eyes palette on this side and the Perception palette on this side. Some of them are pretty similar, and those are really just the matte shades, the orange, the brown, and the violet tones in both palettes. But none of the shimmers are identical. Like the lightest shimmered shades, this is Lucio and Unbothered, they're really not similar at all. This is a lot deeper and more gold. Then Mesmerize and Diva are not that similar either. This is a lot peachier. And then the next shimmer shade, this is Muse and TF. Like they might look a little bit similar, but this one's definitely bronzier from the Karen's palette. And then Fleck and Titus are like those gray tones, but they're definitely different tones as well. So you do get some similar shimmer shades, but they're definitely not identical. The most identical ones are the mattes that are kind of standard in most palettes lately. So I'm just gonna go ahead and show you guys a comparison of the Through My Eyes palette to the ColourPop Becky G palette, because I also wanted to compare it to this one because this is a similar layout where you get some burgundies, some golds, and pops of green, so you guys can see a couple comparisons between those. All right, so from all the shades in both of these palettes, we only have 3 pretty similar colors. The matte and the burgundy shades in both palettes are pretty similar, but even Lucido and Estrella from the Becky G palette, this is the Becky G side, this is Through My Eyes, those are still fairly different. So really not a lot of similarities there. I swatched all shades in both palettes and most of them were pretty different that you can't really say they're a dupe to each other or anything. So I was pretty impressed with how little overlap there was with the Salvaje palette especially, and also the Perception palette. But that's going to be everything for all of the swatch comparisons. Let's go ahead into the tutorial so you guys can see how I got this look with the Through My Eyes palette. Alright, so I was just looking on Instagram to see some different looks that Karen did with this collection, because I just recently did a green eyeshadow look with the Becky G palette, and I also did like a burgundy look with that palette. So I didn't want to do like the green all over my lid, and I didn't want to use these colors. I actually have an Instagram tutorial with this shade on my lid, which I really like that. So I would go ahead and link that below if you guys want to see like more of a cool tone, grungy eye look. But then I was looking on the ColourPop Instagram and I saw this picture, and this one is so pretty. She's wearing like the gold and the green. And I've done a lot of like green on the lower lash line, but it's kind of like blown out a little bit lower, so it's more dramatic. So I think I want to do something like that with the nude lip and the gloss. So I'm going to start off with this shade Sandalwood, and this is just slightly darker than a base color for me. So it's almost going to be like my first transition shade, just like a tiny bit of color, but almost a skin tone shade. And I'm not necessarily going to follow her look completely. I just want to do the smoked out green on the lower lash line. So I'm just going to use a couple different transition shades. I'm going to start out with Canela, and this shade is actually like really pigmented. It has a little bit of a gold glitter, but it goes on matte. And then to deepen this up a bit, let's go in with Divina. This like purple eggplant color. This shade is super pigmented as well. I was specifically really impressed with this shade because I always see like deep burgundy matte shades in palettes and they don't go on pigmented. Like they really, you really have to force them on, like really pack them on. But this shade has such great pigmentation. So I just wet a flat brush. I'm gonna go in with the shade Muse. This is probably my favorite shade in the palette for like an everyday lid color. It's also like it's really pretty. It's really creamy, so it like glides on your eye really nicely. I might cover up a little bit of that purple so that the green doesn't really clash on the eye. I am trying to find a green eyeliner. I think this is the only one that I have from e.l.f. and this is blue. Never mind. Okay, so I just discovered I don't own any green eyeliner, and I really wish I did because I wanted the green to really pop on my lower lash line. So I went in with some brown eyeliner, but we're gonna smoke it out. Actually, let me go in with the shade Canela. And I'm going to use that first on the lower lash line just with a smudge brush to kind of soften up this look before we add the green. So I'm going in with another flat brush, and Emerald Dream is so shimmery and pigmented on its own, but I wanted to use a wet brush to really emphasize the green. So you guys probably noticed this the whole time, and I totally forgot that there's another matte green in this palette. So I'm just gonna use the shade Moody with a liner brush, and I'm just going to smudge this in to my waterline. So I'm just gonna finish this off with a little bit of shimmer in my inner corner, and I did wet my brush so that this color would really pop out because I did want it to be pretty dramatic. All right, so eyes are done. I just threw on some lashes, and I'm gonna move into all of the lip colors. I'm gonna start off with the lip gloss. This is in the shade Glass Lip, and I'm just gonna show you guys what it looks like on its own. So here is the shade Glass Lip on its own. I really like what it looks like with this eyeshadow particularly, and this really reminds me of the original Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb. This one's a little bit peachier, but the overall look is pretty much the same with like the shimmer and the glossiness, but really pretty gloss, definitely like a shade I would definitely wear on its own. Next up, we're going in with the Ultra Matte Lip in the shade Dulcet. I'm probably gonna wear the lighter nude matte lip, so I'm gonna apply this one first. So this shade reminds me a little bit of a brighter version of Kylie Cosmetics Kristen. That was my first thought with this shade. I typically don't wear shades like this because this has like a little bit of a pink hint to it. It's like a strawberry brick color. Normally I wear like more deeper bold colors and not so much like brighter colors, but this is actually pretty with this eye look. Lastly, we have the Ultra Matte Lip in Sueño de Coco, and I was wearing this in my last video too. It's a really pretty cool tone nude. So this is Sueño de Coco. It reminds me a little bit of ColourPop Beeper, which used to be like my holy grail shade like 2 or 3 years ago, but it's a little bit more nude and less brown than that shade. I'm gonna go ahead and apply the lip gloss on top so you guys can see. So I like this combination a lot. As soon as I layered both together, I don't know why, it made me feel like I was a brat still. I feel like they have like nude, really, really shiny and glittery lips, so I felt like it was going with that vibe. But I like this combination because it's like more of a little bit of cool tone lip, but with the gloss it kind of tones it down and adds more of a metallic finish. All right, so those are all 3 lip colors. I feel like they're all pretty wearable. Even the boldest shade is still like fairly wearable compared to like a super deep burgundy lip or something, or like a really bold out there color. But yeah, those are all the lip colors, especially like this combination and the nude liquid lipstick. You guys will see me wearing that a lot. All right, so overall, I am really happy with the Through My Eyes palette. The formula is really, really awesome. It feels really high quality, really easy to use, really easy to do a really quick eye look. So that's what I really like about a lot of ColourPop palettes lately, that there's like go-to eye looks that I can do in like 2 or 3 minutes, basically. I really like the tones in this palette, and if you guys were worried about how it compared to some of those other palettes that I mentioned, there's not too much overlap there, so I was happy that I purchased this palette. What may be an issue for some people might be like the transition shades. If you are somebody who does not like to step out of like brown transition shades, there's a lot of, not too much brown. There's a lot of color with the transition shades. You have some like mustardy tones, oranges, mauve shades, burgundies, and basically one brown that will be like your staple transition shade. But if you like to mostly stick to like more neutral transition shades, there's not a lot of that in this palette, especially compared to the Perception palette, which is basically browns and of orange for like matte transition shades. And also in the Salvaje palette, you do get more brown transition shades and more neutrally transition shades, and also a little bit deeper tones. So I'm definitely happy with all of the shades in the formula of this palette, but just keep that in mind if you are not somebody who really likes to experiment with transition shades or do bolder eye looks. You might get stuck with this palette because there are like a lot of different tones for transition shades. It might not be your go-to palette for like a quick work look or like 5-minute eye look. Alright guys, so those are all my thoughts on the new ColourPop I Love Sarah E collection. I did do another Instagram tutorial with the palette, so I will go ahead and link that in my description box if you guys want to see like a completely different eye look to this one. But that's gonna be everything for this video. Let me know if you guys picked up this collection in the comments down below. And if you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'll talk to you guys soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.